think you ought to know. That Men's Radio. The place where men and women really speak. Oh man, what a show. It's Men's Radio. This crazy show is on 3 times a week. Now Russ and Phil are there to help with all your cares. We laugh, we cry, we talk like grown-ups do. But if you're sad and low, it won't cost you no dough. Men's Radio, that's the place for you. With Russ Kane and Phil Dave.
Come on, tip-top entertainment there. What a fabulous start. Phil, the first thing I got to say straight out, I hope you got my card and flowers.
I did, thank you, Russell. But you've ruined it now because I saw a question mark and I didn't know who it was from.
Oh,
you've ruined that area.
I'm a fool to myself.
Oh dear.
I'm a fool to myself. Damn it, I didn't think.
Azadon Brown says, good snowy morning from New York. Well, Asa, I'm delighted to report that it's not snowing where we are, but a very good snowy morning to you.
I don't want to rub it in, Azadon Brown, top psychotherapist in the United States, but
it's quite
sunny. Easy for me to say. Morning all, says Paul Andrews. We've got a pack show. I want to bring the first guest on straight away. Oh, it's snowing for Elizabeth Green in Manhattan. She's in New York City. So good the name twice.
Oh, my mother's watching.
Did you send your mother a Valentine card?
That would just be weird.
I used to do that when I was little. I didn't have anyone to send it to, so I sent it to my mum. I think she knew it was from me.
It should probably the right help. Marriage says, good afternoon, and here's wishing everyone a happy St. Valentine's Day.
What a load of old crap it is. Right. Hello, made it at last. Flash. Oh.
We've got to be quick today, actually, because
we've really got to rush on. So, our first guest of the week. Fantastic. I can't tell you what day it is today. Ladies and gentlemen, that's my round of applause sound effect. Mr. John Taylor.
That's my round of applause sound effect.
We've never done that before. I don't even know why the hell I thought of that. I think I'm in a panic today. Hi, John. How are you?
I feel very special with that introduction.
You do? God almighty. Don't. John, don't feel special, mate. Don't.
No expense spared on the sound effects. I can only apologise.
Huge. John Taylor 1 minute, Shirley Ballas the next. What more do you want out of a show? John, happy Valentine's Day to you. Tell us why you're here. And I'm glad. I know you and I have been sort of emailing and stuff. I'm glad we've finally managed to sort this out. So.
Yeah, brilliant. So I'm here. I've just written a book. So I am a therapist myself. Obviously, men's mental health or mental health is very, very important for me. So I've just written a book about my childhood, growing up with an alcoholic mother. My own spiral into addiction and mental health problems. And it's funny, my breakdown, if you like, was in 2003 when I went into rehab, got sober, had a breakdown. And even in 2003, I'd say I was having a breakdown. Men didn't say it was a breakdown. No. 2003, it wasn't a breakdown.
Was this alcohol, John?
It was everything. It was alcohol and drugs, but mostly alcohol. Yeah.
Okay.
It's interesting to say because I come from the belief that alcohol and mental health. We always have a thing in the addiction world. It's alcohol and mental health. We kind of like bat each other off against each other.
Yeah.
I believe it's the same thing. Alcoholism addiction is a mental health issue, and the reason I say that, Russ, is because I was harmed a lot as a little boy watching my mum drink this poison called alcohol. And then what did I do to medicate myself? I drank the poison that caused me a lot of harm as a little boy and ended up really unwell mentally.
John, if you don't mind me asking, and we have a rule here on Men's Radio, if you don't like the question, it's not the BBC. We're not antagonistic. If you don't like the question, just don't answer it. How bad did it get for you?
Yeah, it got bad where it was suicide or homicide. You know, we have a saying in the, you know, it got really, really bad. You know, the dark thoughts.
I get the first bit, John. What explains? I understand suicidal, obviously, but homicide. Were you thinking of harming somebody?
Yeah. So the bottom line, I mean, I'd always had as a little boy, I'd always had, like, they call them intrusive thoughts, dark thoughts. And it was mostly about my mum. I always had a thought that my mum was going to die because there was a lot of domestic violence in my house, you know.
God.
So, you know, I kind of, like, let me just give a little bit of context. So up to the age of 8, you know, my life was going really well. Everything was going. And then I come home from school one day, and my mum was lying in bed, beaten to a pulp.
Oh, God.
And everything changed from that day. You know, everything changed. And I shut down. Even to that day, which is over 40 years ago, I shut down as a little boy. And then it was about survival.
And was that your John? Sorry,
but
go
then,
on, Phil.
I was just going to say that actually sort of makes, in some horrid, twisted way, quite a lot of sense, because by the sound of it, what you seem to, from what I've interpreted, that you have in common with your mother, is that alcohol was a coping mechanism.
100%. 100%. I detail this in the book as well. My granddad, a lovely man called Whiskey Ben. He was an alcoholic.
There's a bit of a theme going on here, John. I suspect. Am I saying?
And it, you know, my dad, both of my granddads, they were both alcoholic. Both come from Scotland, Glasgow, and if you trail it back, I mean, they say alcoholism runs in families. It's certainly run in my family.
How do you? Okay, so John, this is something that I've asked many guests who come on to the Men's Radio who've spoken about the subject of addiction, because I feel that sort of a lot of people don't know this, and it's always interesting because most people give a different answer. Where does a habit end and an addiction start? How do you know?
Ooh, good question.
You are addicted to alcohol.
Good one.
Do you know what? So we do, like, so obviously I've been working in addiction for many years. You don't really know it. We used to do an exercise when I worked in rehab. It's called the invisible line, where you cross over. There's a difference between a heavy drinker and an alcoholic. The only way to describe it, the best way, your drinking turn starts with a mental twist. So things start happening in your mind that maybe with a heavy drinker.
Like what? Or do you not want to answer that?
Yeah, no. So really dark thoughts. You know, so just you know, for me, I think what happened was it stopped. So just going back to a question you said right at the beginning, I used drink a lot to sort of bury what happened to me as a child. Yeah. But what happens with addiction, you take it more and more, and then it stops working. It stopped. The medicine stops working. So I've self-medicated myself, and I was taking loads of drink, and then it stopped working. So all the pain from my past wasn't able to bury it anymore. I mean, you know, they say with addiction, it gets you mentally or physically. I talk in my book, I'd had a drugs overdose before where I nearly killed myself. So it didn't get me physically, but it got me mentally.
When
I
mean, you look back, John, when you look back at the old John Taylor, who is in terrible trouble and spiraling out of control, to the John Taylor now talking to us articulately, eloquently, written a book, do you recognize that guy?
I have a lot of sorrow for, you know, I'm sympathetic towards him. A lot of my therapy was this thing called they call it inner child work, where you go back as an adult and look at that young boy. And even when I was writing the book, you know, I was like really like in the room with this young 8-year-old and feeling so much like empathy for him and and trying to love him because I didn't have a chance. And the interesting thing is, when I was writing the book, a lot of the times I'd go back because my dad, I was so fearful of my dad. When I try and answer my dad back, the lip would go. I mean, my mum and dad have been dead a long time. The lip would go, and I try and answer him, but I was terrified of it. In the writing process, because it was about an 18-month writing process, in the writing process, I'd go back in front of the laptop and the lip would go and everything. So I'd literally go back as that 8-year-old, boy.
Of course. It's very easy to be triggered back to another time. It's very, very easy, and the memories you had are well, awful, to be perfectly honest. I mean, they're just absolutely awful. Here's a comment coming in from New York State, across the Atlantic. Sounds like he disassociated as a child. John mentioned that he became homicidal, which may have been triggered by the alcohol abuse, causing a psychosis-induced rage.
Asa works
Brown.
in psychology,
Yes.
by the way, just in case you think he's enthusiastic when it comes.
No, he really does know what he's talking about. What do you think about that?
Yeah, there was lots of psychosis because I was taking a lot of cocaine, a lot of cannabis, a lot of alcohol. I was hearing things, I was seeing things. Yeah, there was definitely psychosis, 100%. I used to have a shed in the bottom of my garden, and at the end of my drinking, I was hearing things, and yeah, I was very unwell.
They know what's interesting though is that you have said what I think not a lot of people do say who have been in a similar position, at least they don't say it openly, is that they look back and they do have sympathy for themselves. A lot of people have spoken about how angry they are with themselves, about how they can't believe they let things get that bad. And of course, all they end up doing is just replacing sort of one, as it were, problem with another, because rather than sort of going through addiction, they're now going through this period of sort of self-hate. And I think it's quite reassuring to hear that actually you, by the sound of it, thank goodness, don't have that. And I hope that's the case, that you don't have any self-hate, because you shouldn't. I think what you're saying is incredible.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of it, because I got well through the 12-step program, and the 12-step program is obviously a spiritual program. We come from a place of addicts are not bad people. We're just really, really unwell. I was really, really unwell. I wasn't a bad person. And I think that helped me a lot,
Is there any part of you that, I don't want to sound harsh, because obviously if you say that your parents are no longer with us, but is there any part of you that has any blame, say, on your parents? In other words, do you have any anger towards them for, if you like, introducing the idea of alcoholism into your life?
I think like with any sort of trauma, you're going to get PTSD, especially because I work with families of addicts, which I have done for 15 years. So when you've had so much trauma with PTSD, a thought will come up now and then, bit of anger, bit of how could you do that to me?
Yeah.
Like with any sort of trauma, anyone will know it will come up, but I can let it go now. It will come up. I recognize what it is.
The thing about anger, and it's something that I talk about a lot, is if you turn it inwards, it will lead to depression. If you can harness that anger, I always say, I quote the same thing from the Public Image song, anger is an energy. And when I got very angry about things that were happening in my life, which I don't need to go into now, I used it as an energy to propel me forward. And I didn't let it lead to depression. Easier said than done, let me tell you. I'm not clapping myself on the back, but if you hold on to that anger, it will lead to, it's bad. It's very, very corrosive, very corrosive. You're really resonating with all our audience all over the world, by the way. Addiction is of all kind is a symptom of being in survival mode. Therapeutic growth allows the individual to develop a thrive mode.
John, there's so much that we still have to discuss with you, and
I come back.
We're sort of flat out of time. Will you come back and have a chat with us another time?
100%. Yeah,
I'd really like that, because I think we haven't even touched the sides here, John. You're a really interesting guy. You're a brave guy. More importantly, for everybody watching all over the world, you are an example that life can be turned around.
Mm.
I mean, look
Yeah,
at you.
no,
Here you are
definitely.
now. Look what you're doing. Look what you're giving back to the world. And you were really down in an abyss. And you
And
pulled yourself out. And you did that.
no,
You did
brilliant.
that.
And when I come back, we'll talk more. Will you about the book as well?
Yeah,
Russ?
yeah,
Put
absolutely.
the
What I'll
links
do is
out.
I'll get my team, that's me, to reach out to you, that's me again, and we'll sort it out. We'll get you back on, John, I promise, because you've been great. Let's
No,
just end with a comment coming in from Manhattan. This is coming in from Manhattan right now. Good job, John, says Elizabeth Green.
And also doing obviously great work to mark Children of Alcoholics Week as well. So thank you very much indeed for that, John.
Nationwide campaign.
John, we will see you very soon. I promise.
Thanks a lot,
You come
guys.
back. Thank you.
Keep well, John. Thank you. Bye-bye. Oh, it's Piccadilly Circus in here.
It is Piccadilly Circus. Have you got your you know what I'm saying here? You got your you wearing your sequins? Got your sequins on?
Well, I'm feeling enough you say that. Hang on 2 seconds.
Hang on. Now, Phil. Straight back. Oh, for God's sake, he's useless. I have been practicing my tango. I've also been practicing my Diet Coke. Wah, 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 wah. I'm here all week. I don't care who knows it. I'm so excited about this. I really am. I didn't think we could get this next guest on the show. Oh, you put a jacket on, you jerk. You jerk. Ladies and gentlemen, I know she's not here to talk about this, but I don't care. It's too good an opportunity to miss. Only Shirley Ballas.
Oh my not worthy. Gracious me.
Hello, boys.
Shirley, it's almost you're a little bit like Mariah Carey in the sense where she goes, she has to have white flowers and stuff like that. You have to have sequins wherever you go. So I hope you do the trick.
No sequins on today, boys.
It tells you everything you know that you need to know about Phil. That he's got a jacket with sequins, and I don't. I'll leave it there. I'm saying no more. Now, also we have got. Am I correct? Or else I've completely messed this up. Ed Fisher, am I correct?
Yes, you are correct.
Ed, now you're from Nationwide.
I am.
And Shirley isn't. But Shirley, thank you so much. Thank you both for joining us. It's an absolute thrill for us. I know. And I know you're not here to discuss it. Love the show. I don't dance. I never dance. I hate dancing. If I'm at a function, I won't dance. But I love the show. I love the way it looks. I love the joy it gives. And it's just a joyful joy. And give my love to Bobby Warrens as well next time you see him, because he's the best. The best. You guys look like you're having a blast. Now, it's Valentine's Day, a fact that won't have gone unnoticed. But you're here to talk about Valentine's Day's scams.
We are. I've teamed up with Ed, a nationwide building society, to sort of tell everybody some of the red flags and keys to look out for on different kinds of scams, when they're dating online or getting in touch with people, however. So that's why Ed and I are here today. We're very excited to be with you and your listeners today.
Now, Shirley, forgive me, I'm terribly sorry, but you are associated with dance and all things like sparkly and stuff. Why are you throwing your weight behind a campaign about scams?
Because when I was in my 50s and I had split up with a boyfriend I'd been with for 6 years, I was in a very, very, very dark place, which I haven't talked about before, but I was. And then it was suggested to me that I do some online dating, which I did. And because my son was quite famous over there, people were kind of guessing my profile and whatever. Anyway, I met this man. He wouldn't put his picture up and he sounded marvelous, too good to be true. So I arranged to meet him. And then he was chatting. He was quite charming, but he looked nothing like he said he looked, because he described himself as like 6 foot. I think he was about 5'7" and all these sorts of things. And then when it came to the end of the dinner, he said, "I've really enjoyed it. Would love to meet up with you again." I'd shared my history with him already at this point. And then he'd forgotten his wallet and he asked me if I would pay for the dinner. Now, I lived at the time. Right. I lived at the time with what I call my gay gaggle, my 2 6-foot strong married men that I'd lived with for a long time. And they were the ones who said, "Okay, that'll be no more dates." So I actually, by sharing my experience with them, they actually probably saved me from a lot worse. And it put me off, to be honest, on the dating. So that's why I wanted to team up with Nationwide.
Do you know what, Shirley? I remember this so clearly years and years ago when I was a little kid. I was having dinner with my mum and dad somewhere in town. And there was a lady and a gentleman at the next table. The guy they got to the end of their meal. They were chatting away, obviously on a date. It's quite a glamorous restaurant. And he got up ostensibly to go to the loo. And of course, he did a runner. He never came back. And this I can remember it like it was yesterday. This poor woman sitting at the table, and the tables were quite close to each other. And she was just covered in embarrassment. We felt terrible for her. But, then she had to pick up the bill and walk out on her own. It was horrible.
Well, that's
horrible.
To sort of like just give a few, keys to stay protected and a few red flags really from personal experience. And that's why I teamed up with Ed and Nationwide. So,
well, Ed, tell us a bit about Nationwide's involvement in this, because again, so with as a building society, you don't necessarily sort of think of turning to the building society for help when it comes to scams, but of course, it very much impacts potentially on people's finances. I'm guessing that's where the link comes in.
Go on, Ed. I'll let you answer that.
Well, and that's sadly the case, isn't it? So, as Shirley described then, as you've sort of described, there's a really unfortunate minority out there that will just try anything, won't they? And they'll take you for as much as you can. What we're trying to do is raise awareness, because we're getting increasing numbers of reports of these types of scams happening. And we just want to make sure that everybody knows what to look out for. We don't want to frighten people. The vast majority of people are honest. If you're going on a website or an app, that's perfectly normal in this day. Certainly the last couple of years, that's how we're making connections. So we don't want to frighten people. We do want people to fall, but we don't want you to fall victim. So we want to raise what are those red flags that you can watch out for.
Oh, I love that. We want people to fall, but we don't want to fall victims. Did you come up with that? That's Ed's line. That's Ed's line.
Mine at the moment, but you're very welcome to share it.
No. Copyright Ed Fisher, 2022.
And like you said, Ed, I mean, I think a couple of the important things is, and this one I got correctly, is to meet people in a safe place. I mean, that's first. These are keys to being protected. Meet people in a safe place when you're going on any of these kind of websites. And I learned something from Ed this morning on another show that we did, reverse search. Now, if I'd have had that when I was 50, I could have seen that perhaps that man's profile was from another profile. You do the reverse search and it shows you if the picture is taken from another profile. I think that's brilliant. I didn't know that actually, Ed, till you told me. Keeping family and friends in the loop. Don't, money and love, people tend not always to talk about, particularly if they're online dating, but it's always good to keep your family in the loop. And I just think that falling in love shouldn't cost you, your wallet type of thing.
Precisely. So if the date says, meet me at the warehouse down by the docks at midnight, come alone, don't.
No, don't.
Don't do that.
Flag, isn't it?
I've never understood people who just go, that sounds reasonable. I'll meet them in a graveyard at 11 o'clock tonight. Sounds good to me.
And also, I don't know with you, but also falling in love quickly. People can sometimes on these dating apps, they fall in love with you quickly. They have these strong feelings. If it happens super quick, red flag.
The problem No, but the problem with dating apps, of course, it gives people carte blanche to hide behind a facade. So, at least sort of from years ago when people had to sort of meet through either official channels, whether it be matchmaking channels, or whether it be maybe sort of introduced through a friend, or heck, even if you did it the old-fashioned way and just went into a bar and met somebody, you couldn't hide behind a digital world. And this is what's sort of so scary about these dating apps now.
And that's why it's important to look out for these red flags. If they try to control your communication, for example, telling you can't talk to friends and family, and they try to move you over a little bit more privately. And if the conversation turns to money, run. Yes. Because, they might start scamming you for your money, your bank account. I mean, we see it all the time.
Another thing to watch out for, Shirley, if they say, let's move to Montecito. I'll leave that one.
Ed, from your perspective, if a customer, in all seriousness, if a customer was to come to you and say, look, I'm a bit worried, I think I've been duped, what do I do? What's the first step that you would advise someone who maybe has experienced some sort of monetary scam? Sadly, they have fallen for it.
Fallen victim. Well, I mean, so the first thing obviously we're going to try and do is get the money back. The first thing we're going to do is try and trace what's going on and try and get hold of the cash. It's no guarantee, unfortunately. We can't always guarantee that money will come back. What we also have, however, done quite recently is launch what was a fairly unique service in that if you are thinking about sending some money somewhere, and it could be a romance scam, it could be another scam, you can get in touch with us ahead of time. So you can give us a call, and that's 24 hours, 7 days a week. And you can also go into one of our branches. Now, it's got to be a human conversation because obviously we've got to understand what is happening for you as well as what's going on with the information and the finances. But if you want to get in touch with us in ahead of time, you can actually get us to check the payment and the destination out for you. And then then you're protected if anything goes wrong.
You know what's great, what you just said, Ed, and I'm not being facetious in the least. You have branches. You can actually talk to a human being. We are being pushed. It's a whole thing that we talk about a lot on this station. We're being pushed into, you can't talk to anybody. Everything's digital. If you've got a banking problem, well, you're stuffed. Thank goodness you still have branches. Well done, Nationwide. That's what I say. Seriously.
Well, and thank you very much. I mean, that's very much our philosophy as well. There's the digital world. We want to cater for that. But there's the human world. And the thing about the scam, obviously it's a subject I'm very passionate about, because I spend my days trying to stop them. But the scam works because it's a human trick. It is a human trick. And it's going to take human awareness and human conversation to try and stop them.
Because these scammers, they're not idiots. They're smart. I mean, most of them, they're smart. They've thought this through. They know exactly what they're doing. They know which buttons to press and which emotional, reactions to get and engender.
I think nowadays it becomes a professional business for some people because it's easy. People are vulnerable. We've come through a pandemic. It's a vulnerable time. Some people might be lonely, and they love that interaction. And people have realized that human feelings. People go through human feelings.
I hate to say it's very simple. It's speaking with my other hat on, because when I'm not talking about mental health and well-being, I do a lot of stuff on technology. And I often say when we talk about scams, it's the very simple reason that these scammers are out there is because people fall for them. It may be one in several thousand, but when they fall for it, it makes them money. So they're going to do it, I'm afraid.
Well, the top tip really is the perfect Valentine's Day shouldn't cost you your bank balance at the end of the day. And that happens a lot. So I just think that the listeners should be really, really aware. Not like Ed said, we're not trying to frighten anybody here, but I've had personal experience of this several times throughout my life. And I think it's just really important that we see red flags. We don't always want to see the red flags, but they will be there for sure.
Because once you've started trundling down that road and someone says, Shirley, are you sure about this guy? And you're like sort of involved emotion. You don't want to hear that, do you? That's human nature. You don't want to hear negativity because you've made up your mind and you think they're trying to derail you from what seems like a good deal and going to be happy.
That's why it's good to communicate. Communication is key. Talking to friends, talking to family members, going to Nationwide. You can even go to nationwide.co.uk, search for scam guides. We give you all the statistics. We give you things to look out for. And if you have been scammed, don't be embarrassed. Come forward and let's learn from it. Let's learn from each other. Let's try to save somebody some misery.
That is an absolute key point, because I'm sure, Ed, that a lot of people in the past feel so stupid, which they shouldn't do because they're the victim, so they shouldn't feel stupid. But again, human nature is such. You think, I'm an idiot, what a moron, I better not tell anybody, I'm going to look so stupid in front of everyone. And so the scammer gets away with it.
I think that's correct. And it's very difficult to tell. I mean, we know that the scam is going up, but of course, to a degree, they may be going up partly because people are reporting more of them. That might be one of the dynamics that's happening. Some of this stuff has probably been happening to a degree for some time. And yes, the pandemic will have exacerbated that. Yes, the feelings of loneliness will have made things a little worse. But I think going back to what Shirley said there, there's loneliness in a love sense, but there's also just the general lack of social contact with your friends and family. And if you can try and get over that and try and keep that sort of close, gaggle of friends around you, it's really, really important, because they're going to spot things you haven't, and they've got your best interests at heart. So yes, maybe some tough love, but maybe that's what you need.
Now, where do people go if they want to find more information? I'm assuming that you guys are probably somewhat busy today, so we probably have to let you go. Where do people go if they want more information on this?
Get on the internet and go to nationwide.co.uk. So on our site, nationwide.co.uk, at the top in the search bar, just pop in scams. Just pop in scams and it'll come up with a scams guide that's got everything you could want to know. There's one other great independent website as well, which is take5-stopfraud.org.uk. So you can also have a look on that.
Oh, that's good. Don't know that one. Listen, guys, thank you. I know you're busier than busy people. Thank you so much for dropping in. Really appreciate it. Ed, lovely to meet you. Shirley, an honor as far as I'm concerned. Honor.
It's so sweet. Thank you.
No, we mean it. We love you. We love you. Right. Bye-bye, guys. I know you're incredibly busy. Bye now. Bye-bye.
Bit of Strictly Class, if you don't mind. Why not?
Shirley Ballas on our show.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's how we roll. That is how we roll. It's great. Terrific. How nice. And it's true, but this goes back to something. Phil and I were having this conversation a few years ago. I'm not going to say with who. Somebody even younger than Phil, if such a thing could be imagined. And the guy was saying to us, somebody we used to work with, and the guy was saying to us, I can't meet anybody, blah, 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 blah. And I said, well, why don't you're always out in a bar or something like that, a pub. That's what you do. Just walk up to somebody and say hello. And the guy turned to Phil and I can't do that. No one does that.
I know. True. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you remember this conversation? And I went, and I looked like the guy had gone raving mad. And I go, what are you talking about? You can't do that. You can't walk up to somebody.
No, but it is so true, because unfortunately now, in the day and age we live in, it could be deemed as being quite forward and quite perverted, which of course is bonkers.
Well, hello, I'm Russ. Can I get you ladies a drink or something? I'm not saying hello, I'm going to row hip on you and Dr. Huxtable on you.
No, just you can't. It's not done thing anymore. It's terribly sad, but it is just not the done thing anymore.
I just don't understand it. It's a bewildering to me. It's an age thing. I know it's an age thing, but I find it bewildering.
No, I could not agree with you more, because I find it bizarre that we live in a day and age where it is more acceptable to send photos of your private parts to somebody.
Yeah, I should stop doing that, because when I've seen it. It's enough now. Enough.
I knew as soon as I said something about that, I was letting myself in for. Right, let's try that again. I find the fact that it is more acceptable in this day and age to send a photo of one's private parts to a stranger than to actually sort of go up to them in a bar and shake hands. It's just bizarre. It doesn't make sense at all.
It doesn't make any sense to me at all. And the number of women who've told me, oh, yeah, so-and-so, I'd had a business meeting with somebody. Oh, okay. And then they start sending dick pics. And you think, you're a raving lunatic. Or you need severe help, or you need to be banged up for a few months. I mean, what the hell? Now, here we go. This is from Glassy. Amanda's saying, where are we? It's vile.
That is shocking.
See, Elizabeth over in New York.
Julia, to say the least.
Elizabeth, you see, I do this. Elizabeth, I say hi to people I don't know. In New York, it's easy. Yeah, well, everyone says either hi or you get lost.
Yeah, but hang on a second. Saying hi to somebody. Sorry, Elizabeth. Now, I know what you're saying, and I promise you, unbelievably enough, I can be friendly to strangers as well. You would never know it, but I can be. But when you say hi to somebody, I think that's very different from sort of being in a bar, which is in a sort of a darkened environment that is then sort of potentially offering someone an alcoholic drink that, for all they know, could be laced with something. So from that perspective.
Now, interesting. Shirley said something. Shirley said, I got another guest lined up. It's non-stop. Shirley said something that I do want to touch on. All right. And it's this. And she said, always meet some. Your hair looks great, Dr. Zoe. Honestly, your hair looks marvelous. I can feel it. No, you look good. I promise you. Give it a bit of a zhuzh. You'll be on in a minute. Don't forget what we can see.
And I just say, Dr. Zoe, some of us can only dream. I'm just saying.
Oh, bless. Stop it. Well, you've been very brave. I don't know what the hell you shaved your head for. But anyway, you shaved your head. There it is. You've done it, and we love you for it. Now, look, somebody I knew met somebody and they said, shall we meet? And they said, fine. And they met for tea. Now listen to this, because this is important, because people always think that the victim is an idiot and has met them in some sleazy bar, and you're all going, why did you do that? They met for tea. I'm not going to say the place, but you've been there, Phil, many times. I've been there. It's a very respectable sort of tea coffee shop. All right? In a very nice part of town.
Gracious.
Yeah. They had tea and cakes. And the next thing was the guy, oh, would you like a drink? And this person that I know quite well said yes. And now this is a mature woman. This is a woman in her 40s. Okay. Not an idiot. Said, okay, I'll have a drink. The next thing she knew, the very next thing she remembered, that she was in a very, very compromising position without her clothes and had to find her way home.
Crumbs.
I can't say more than that because I can't name any other people. It was an absolutely horrific story. So please be very, very careful. Right. Speaking of being very careful.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's get into this now, shall we? About the statistics show that nearly 1 in 3 apparently don't take up screening offers. Doctors have revealed that 1 in 3
Are
people.
you trying to contact the other side? What are you doing there?
No, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry.
Are you there, Doris Stokes? Not twice. Not twice.
Shut up, for
Jesus
goodness sake,
Christ.
man. We've got to guest behave yourself.
I know. It's a doctor, so I'm best behaviour.
Thank goodness someone who knows something a bit more than Russ and I do. It's Dr. Zoe Williams again. Oh, welcome back, Dr. Zoe.
Hi, thanks for having me. Not in my car this time. I managed to be in
disappointment. We were hoping you'd be on the back
of
of a motorbike or something this time. Standing, paragliding. I don't know, wherever it is. How are you? You well?
I'm very well, thank you.
Yes,
yeah, very well indeed. Thanks
you
for asking.
You look in rude health, as they say.
Good. I was just judging my hair there.
No, it's just.
I didn't realise you guys could see me.
It's a bit of a judge day with Shirley. I said Shirley Ballas. Shirley Ballas, and now you. I mean, it's a judgy day. Let's be honest about it.
Dr. Zoe, it's first and foremost. Screening comes in all forms, doesn't it? I think often people sort of think of screening nowadays as sort of having to go to a hospital for a scan or something like that. But actually, there are other sorts of home tests as well. Screening is all like different sorts of potential things nowadays, isn't it, really?
Yeah, well, when we're talking about screening tests for cancer, there are 3 NHS screening programs in this country. There's bowel screening, breast screening, and cervical screening. And today, a new campaign has launched from the Department of Health and Social Care and the NHS, encouraging people to take up the offer of cervical screening, because as you correctly mentioned just before, almost a third of people have not been booking in that test when they're invited to do so. And it is really important because 2 women on average die every day of cervical cancer. And the thing about cervical cancer is it is preventable. So, there were people dying who shouldn't be, and increasing the number of people that attend screening is one of the most important things we can do.
It's the fear, isn't it? Yeah. So many times that you hear people are just too scared to hear what doctors have to say.
I think that is part of it. Yeah, there's been a survey done that shows embarrassment comes up really high on that. For some people, it's that they intend to do it, they just don't get round to it. It's low down on their priority list. The pandemic has meant that there was a bit of a backlog, but we're all caught up now. So,
have you really?
Cervical screening programs going ahead at pre-pandemic levels. Yeah, so that's it's one element of the NHS that has caught up. But I think, as you rightly say, whenever the C word is involved, whenever the cancer word is involved, there's fear and people are afraid of getting bad news. And I think the really reassuring thing I can tell people about the cervical screening program is when you have your test, we're not actually looking for cervical cancer. We are looking for 2 things. We're looking for a virus, HPV, human papillomavirus, whether that's present or not, because that is the cause of almost all cases of cervical cancer. And that's a virus that most of us have at some point, and our body can clear it, but sometimes it doesn't. And we're looking for abnormal cells, the cell changes that in probably many years could potentially become cancerous. So even if you get an abnormal result, it doesn't mean you have cancer. It means that you might need a bit more monitoring, you might need some treatment. And this is a screening program to prevent cancer from ever happening in the first place.
Why are people, you said one word that absolutely tripped me up. You said people are embarrassed.
Yeah.
And what are they embarrassed about?
Well, having a cervical screening involves when to anyone out there, and obviously it's great to be discussing this. I think with 2 men as well, because this affects everyone. If half of the
it does, and 50% of our audience all over the world are females. So
okay,
there you
brilliant. Go. So what happens when you go for a test is, first of all, you'll have a chat with the healthcare professional, which is most likely to be a nurse. He'll tell you what's going to happen. Then you will be asked to undress from the waist down. And, if you're wearing a skirt or a dress, you can keep that on, or you'll be given a paper sheet to cover yourself. And then a speculum is inserted into the vagina to open up the walls of the vagina. And then a soft brush is used to brush some cells off the cervix, off the neck of the womb. Those are put in some liquid, sent to a laboratory, and it's done. So it takes just a couple of minutes, and it's a couple of minutes that could save your life. But some people do feel embarrassed about exposing that part of their body. I've worked on campaigns in the past where especially younger women feel that doctors and nurses might judge them on whether they have pubic hair and how much pubic hair they have, and, you know, other things, you know, if there's an odor down there. And, you know, we honestly don't, we are so busy focusing on making sure we've got all our bits of equipment, that we can see the cervix properly, that we've done a good test, that we're keeping you safe. We really don't care about any of that.
It's not personal. You see, it's not personal to you. It's personal that you're doing, I'm putting words in your mouth, so if I get it wrong, jump in. It's personal to you that you're doing a good job and doing a 100% professional job. And that's why you decided to be a doctor, and all your colleagues the same thing. But it's not personal. You don't have a personal interaction as such. It's everything that you've mentioned is an irrelevancy to you as a human being.
Exactly. That consultation and that test is all about the patient. And I really urge people, you know, if you are anxious, if you've had an experience in the past where it was uncomfortable or painful and that's holding you back, just tell us, because there are so many things that we can do to put you at ease and make it more comfortable. You know, if you want to listen to a podcast while you have that test done, absolutely fine. If you want to bring somebody with you, you absolutely are well within your rights to.
But not a blind date. Not a blind. No, that wouldn't be good. No, I'm just leading on from what Shirley Ballas was saying. I mean, it was like, if somebody says that, that's a bit of a red flag to me.
I think the point is that it quite literally, people could be, if they're not careful, dying of embarrassment.
Yeah.
That's what's so worrying about
well said.
Yeah. And embarrassment, of all those reasons, that is the one that always comes up on top as the biggest reason that's holding people back. So you're right. Wow. And, you know, I'm not going to sit here and say it's a pleasant test to have done. And some people do find it uncomfortable. But I think we always, like with everything else, we always hear experiences of people who haven't had a good experience. We'll know one person who found it painful, or one person who, you know, for whatever reason. But if you just open it up and chat to all of your friends, all of your family members, and get a range of responses, what you'll find is that for the vast majority of people, it's a quick test that's over and done in a flash. It's not really that much of a big deal. And it can save your life.
One thing you said as well, which really sort of stuck with me, is when you said about people not necessarily having the time for it. That really irritates me if that's an excuse, because the way I look at it is, heaven forbid someone was to fall ill, believe me, you'll spend a heck of a lot longer than 10 minutes to half an hour or whatever it will take for you to go out of your way to go to the doctors to have this test done. And then that's it, compared to the hours of treatment, if indeed you are lucky enough to actually be able to be treated for whatever may come. Nothing may come of it, but you don't know that. But
if I could put the other side of the coin, just from the men's side, I guess the nearest equivalent, would be a prostate examination.
Yeah,
it's essential. It's life-saving. It's not great. It's not a fun day out.
Yeah,
but it's so quick, and it could easily save your life. And with all these things, as I'm sure you'd agree, Dr. Williams, you know, time is always of the essence.
It is.
You know, that's the most important thing of these, or any of these tests. It's so important. You know, you can save so much heartache. I'll leave it as that. So much heartache by just having these tests.
Absolutely, 100%. And with cervical screening, remember, it's not even looking for cancer. It's looking for cancer before it even starts. So don't let it get there. Don't let it get to the stage where you have symptoms. If you attend for all of your cervical screenings, if you've missed one, just ring up your GP clinic today and get booked in. You know, this is to prevent you ever getting cervical cancer in the first place.
You know, another way people might want to look at this, if they are still sort of not completely convinced as to why they should do it for themselves, is I'd go so far as to say is do it for the NHS. All we ever hear about in this day and age is how overwhelmed the NHS is and how many patients, of the backlog of patients there are, and people missing out on vital treatment just because, unfortunately, as things stand, it's a bit busier than it should be for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Well, whereas if you go for screening and you can potentially get something caught early enough, meaning that you'd save hours of time on the NHS potentially having treatment in the first place, surely that's got to be worth it, hasn't it?
Absolutely. And I think, you know, that really is a valid reason sometimes why people haven't been coming forward the last couple of years, because they're worried about overburdening the NHS. They know that GP practices are really, really struggling. And whilst you might really struggle to get an appointment for today or for tomorrow, For a cervical screening, you don't need an urgent appointment. You just need a routine appointment, which is usually booked with the nurse. So if you ring up for that appointment, it might be in 3 weeks' time, but that's fine. So yeah, the best thing to do, ring up, get booked in. And like you say, not only that way, you're going to give yourself the reassurance of knowing that it's done. If there is anything developing, you're going to save yourself a lot of pain, heartache and illness. You are also helping the NHS by attending screening and preventing anything from developing into anything more.
Can I just underline, because I think some people say, oh, I don't want to be a nuisance. I know how busy they are. You're saying the opposite. Please, you're not being a nuisance. That's why we're here. We want to see you. Please come along.
And I think that is so especially true for anything. If we're even going to the effort of sending you a letter and putting it in the post or sending you text reminders, you're not being a nuisance. You're helping us and yourself. So whether that is childhood vaccinations, cervical screening, COVID vaccinations, please don't think you're being a nuisance. You're doing the right thing by getting yourself booked in and getting your test done.
And not to mention, it'll more than likely be a different department anyway to what might be overwhelmed. So the truth is, you're not likely to get those who are carrying out the tests being the ones who are going to be treating patients anyway. So you say not overwhelmed. It's not irrelevant. It's actually kind of pointless to think like that to some degree.
And because cervical screening is so important, if wherever you are, your particular practice, if actually they are struggling with nurse appointments and there is additional pressure, well, then there'll be another way. So local sexual health clinics also offer cervical screenings. But the only way to find that out is, if you ring up your GP practice and get booked in, if they really are struggling and can't do it, there will be a way for them to advise you to get it done elsewhere. Great. But, it does depend on you to ring up and make the appointment.
I'm perfectly sure you've got other people to go and speak to, but just before you disappear, I thought that sort of this might sort of resonate with what you're saying. Paul Claridge says, who has, by the way, himself experienced cancer in the most horrific way. He says, I urge everyone, if you're offered screening for anything, and he puts in large letters, go for it. I didn't have screening, wasn't applicable at my age at the time, but if I had been offered it, I would have had it. I had bowel cancer. Trust me. The slight embarrassment of having a finger inserted in you, basically you're saying worth it.
Yeah, precisely.
100%. And thank you. Thanks to him for sharing that, because, I'm a doctor and I can say this till I'm blue in the tooth. But sometimes somebody with an actual experience like that, it makes such a big difference.
He's a very, very brave guy. He came through hell and back, and he's just so full of life. He's such a positive force for good.
We're working with, on this campaign at the moment, this NHS cervical screening campaign, we do have some individuals as well who've been affected personally, who are really bravely sharing their stories. So there's Aisha, for example, who was so grateful she did attend her screening. And she says if she hadn't attended that appointment, she might not be here today. And it was a simple big appointment, which led to her getting treatment, which meant she never got cervical cancer.
Because it's not... I know you've got to go, but just one last point. This isn't some sort of theoretical thing, is it? It's not some theory. It's real.
It is real.
By the fact that you can bring people who say, look, if I hadn't done that, I might have died. It's so powerful and it's so important.
And I think that's the reminder that 2 women in England die every day on average from cervical cancer. So it's preventable. But
Dr. Zoe, thank you for doing what you do. Keep up the amazing work as ever. And if anyone wants any more information, they can always go to the NHS website.
Yes.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us. We know how busy you are today. Really appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Bye. Bye.
Fantastic. What a show. Piccadilly Circus. But it's true. Look, I'm not going to lie. I wasn't necessarily going to say this in front of Dr. Zoe, but I think I am a bit of a hypocrite, because I know that technically speaking, even at my age, mid-30s, I should probably start to think about regular checkups and stuff like that, just because it is worth it. I have seen people younger than me now lose their lives to cancer, and I don't think that anyone should think of themselves as being immune from it, especially if it's been in the family. And I know...
Tell me about it, boy.
I know that deep down...
Took my dad. My dad.
Deep down, I should
Damn,
probably.
Here's a good question from my cousin Francine. At what age do the NHS stop screening women? Absolutely no idea, Fran. Phone Cyril. She'll know. She knows everything. I have no idea. That's our mutual cousin. Here we go. What do we got here? This was Shirley Ballas and Ed from Nationwide. And Paul says, Russ and Phil, if you don't mind, female friends of mine have had similar experiences when dating or even when just out for a normal night out. What's the matter with people? They're mad, aren't they? They had a drink or two with a bloke, and then he assumed that gay. This is a different thing. I mean, what happened to the person I knew is their drink had been drugged. She'd been drugged.
Crumbs.
This is horribly. I mean, I won't go into more details. It's not right, but yeah, you see that they had a drink or two with a bloke, and then he assumed that gave him the green light to make inappropriate comments and advances. It's all about reading the room. It's all about. There's a very simple rule. I mean, a no means no, and that's the end of it. There's no grey area to that. There is no grey area to that, and I'm not woke. I'm not a tree hugger. You know what I'm like. But woe means no. That's it. At any point. At any point. So it's no excuse. And I didn't think I'd be saying this, but it's no excuse. You can take someone out for an expensive dinner and they say, come back for coffee, and it all gets very romantic and lovely. And if the other partner changes their mind, then they've changed their mind. Get over it. No means no. That's it. Anything else is incorrect. And I've always believed that, and I always will to my dying day. Classy Amanda says this. We've got loads of subjects coming. I'm pretty sure the NHS don't have an age limit for screening. But you need to check. I think you can probably just go on, Franny, just go on the NHS website or phone your local doctor. I'm sure they must have a million doctors at where you live. What have we got here? This is in from Phil's very busy. I don't know what he's obviously doing something. I know he's busy. He's got his busy face on.
Hi all. Hope you're having a good Valentine's Day. My wife just phoned me to say that 3 girls in her office have received flowers and they are absolutely gorgeous. I said, that's probably why. You're in there, Ramsey. That's what we call humor.
That is Ramsey on the sofa tonight, sleeping. Oh, never mind. What have we got here? Paul Andrews, agree with Paul. Don't put it off. If you're offered screening or something doesn't feel right, get it checked. Living right.
Do you know, I did do that.
Right.
I just remembered. I did go and get something checked when something wasn't right. I kept getting this stitch pain in my right side. Oh, question, not the microphone. I kept getting
Never done that before. How unprofessional.
This stitch style pain on the right hand side.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not necessarily a complete expert on these matters, but I think it was sort of somewhere near where the liver sits. So of course, it was quite disturbing, not least of all because everyone who seems to know me seems to think I have a drink issue, which I really don't.
You don't have a drink issue.
I know.
I want to talk about that when you finish this anecdote. I want to talk about that. It's important.
No, 100%. But the other point as well is that my late grandmother had cancer of the liver. So, of course, it sort of does make me a bit twitchy at the thought of it. Having said that, she was 88 and it was secondary. So, I mean, it's a world away from potentially anything. Anyway, one way or another, went to go and have a look. Had a scan done, and sure enough, something did show up. And I thought, oh my God, what on earth is this? I don't, what? Anyway, turned out it's what's called, and the name sounds quite scary, but it's what's known as a blood tumor, right? So, and no, I know it's a scary sounding word.
I know. Do they sit there thinking, what is the thing that will make someone rush to the toilet immediately we say it? I know. Let's put together the words blood tumor and see them go pale.
But, hold that thought, okay? I mean, I can't remember the exact name for it. It's something like a hemangioma or something like that. But anyway.
That's an Italian dessert.
But the doctor did say to me, said, look, 2 centimeters wide, right? Mm-hmm. She also said that it is distinctly possible that has been there since birth, but it's just never shown up before because you'd never gone for a scan.
Don't blame your mother for this.
And as far as she's concerned, doesn't need to do anything else. Mm-hmm. Doesn't want to see me again. It's perfectly normal. Remember, it is blood filled, so that actually means that there are no sort of dangerous cells within it. It's your own blood.
Oh,
yeah, I know. And as a result of it, I never did another thing. But even to this day, occasionally I get twitches there. But there's nothing that ever showed up. Although having said that, though, there is nothing more daunting. And I did know something had shown up, definitely. Because two things. Number one, when I went to, first of all, I had an ultrasound scan on it, which was a very peculiar sensation. I have to say, I do not know how pregnant women cope with it. But I went for an ultrasound scan. And
just think what they have to go through to get pregnant.
Yeah, quite. I went for an ultrasound scan, and the radiologist spent all of 2 seconds on the left side.
Yep.
Was really focusing on the right side. Okay. Now, for all I knew, she didn't know it was the right, but really, really focusing. And I just said, after she's finished, is it all clear then? She said, I'm not allowed to say, you have to speak to the doctor. Now, I can tell you from speaking to people who work within the NHS that they have told me that if they want to say it's all clear, they can say it. They usually say that because something has potentially shown up and they are not allowed to diagnose it. It may be nothing. It may be nothing, but the point is they are still not allowed to diagnose it. And so that obviously got me a bit worried as well. But anyway, like I said, it turned out to be nothing. But it is true. I did actually go and get it sorted. I did go and get it looked at.
Then, our first guest. Well, I'm glad you're okay.
Oh, thanks. This was a couple of years ago, by the way. There's nothing recent, but
well, you're still here, and that's the main thing. Now, Elizabeth, I don't know if we've got time for your comment. We haven't, but I just want to address something that our first guest, John, said. And it's something I feel strongly about. There is a world of difference between us, Phil and I. We're very open about it. Enjoy a drink. That doesn't mean we go get 12 pints and then start a fight. We enjoy a drink with pals. It's a nice social thing to do. We don't get drunk. We just enjoy a drink. Between that and being an alcoholic. And when Phil lightheartedly says, people say, oh, you got a drink problem. I drink probably every day. And what does that mean? I might have a martini, one, or I might have in the evening after dinner, I might have a single dram of whiskey. That's it. All right. So you got to put it into perspective. I don't think that puts me into, it's something I enjoy, I like, puts me in a nice mood, doesn't make me aggressive, doesn't make me into a horrible Mel Gibson screaming lunatic. And it's controlled. I don't think that makes me an alcoholic. And the same with Phil. And I think, and Paul Andrews is saying this, but I don't want everybody tarred with the same brush, if we can say that phrase anymore. I don't even know what we can say, but there's a world of difference, says Paul, between having a drink. What's that?
It's offensive to tarmac. You can't say it.
Everything's offensive to everyone. It's a world of difference between having a drink and being an alcoholic. You'll know if you are, trust me. Absolutely. There is the world of difference between that. Enjoying a drink under social circumstances, absolutely fine, and I don't think we need to demonize it. You know, the world is difficult enough, tough enough, brutal enough, scary enough, without something which cheers us up being demonized. And I feel strongly about that, you know. Everything in moderation. In moderation. You know, you don't have to beat yourself up about it if you fancy a drink. If you start fancying a drink at 10 o'clock in the morning, go and talk to somebody. Yeah? If you're keeping it a terrible secret, go and talk to somebody. Obviously, it's a very big deal. But it's not the same thing as with your supper, having a drink. It's okay.
And I would always suggest as well, by the way, if anything, any of the subjects that we've featured, just please know there is always help out there. Don't sort of go through it alone. It's silly, because otherwise what we do isn't, worthwhile. Just do it. Look for help, because it is out there. I think we have to say a huge thank you to the absolute plethora of guests that we have had today. Thank you very much, Shirley Ballas and Ed Fisher. Thank you very much to John Taylor, and of course to Dr. Zoe Williams. And Also, thank you very much for your comments as well, and for your company. We never take it for granted,
Damn right we don't. Have you noticed, by the way, all the doctors we get on, male and female, are ridiculously attractive and handsome and great. It's extraordinary. Are there no ugly doctors out there?
It's like there are no ugly broadcasters either.
Precisely.
Bye.